Welcome to Rewrite Reality, where we peel back the layers of how we imagine our world, then explore what it means to build different futures. I'm Gregg the Artivist, and on today's episode, we'll dive into how collapse can be the start of something better. Join me to reflect, challenge assumptions, and spark possibility. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Collapse. It's one of those words that make people uncomfortable. We see pictures of buildings, buildings crumbling, markets crashing, systems failing, and when it comes to the climate, we're told it's something to fear, a future to avoid at all costs. But here's the thing, collapse isn't coming. Collapse is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. And in many cases, it's been hidden from view. For some people, collapse looks like heat waves, floods, and wildfires from our changing climate. While for others, it's those eviction notices, it's burnout, or it's the slow erosion of meaning. It's the moment when those stories we've been told our whole lives about success, about progress, about growth, they just don't add up anymore. They stop making sense. And maybe that's not the end. Maybe that's the beginning, because collapse doesn't just destroy, it reveals. It reveals what wasn't working. It peels back the shiny surface to show the cracks underneath in our systems, our priorities, in our assumptions even. And in that honesty, as brutal as it may be, it's a strange kind of freedom. Once the lie breaks down, we don't have to keep pretending. We don't have to keep running on the treadmill of toxic success or holding up a world built on endless extraction and inequality. We can start to ask different questions. Not how do we fix this broken system, but what kind of world do we actually want to live in? And when we ask that, and I mean really ask it, we begin to see that collapse can be compost, for a lack of a better word, like the pile in my garden. It's messy, it's rotten, but it's full of nutrients for new life. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. There's grief here, there's fear, there's loss, there's all those emotions that we need to go through and process. But there's also possibility for connection, for care, for stories that center life instead of profit. I've seen people come alive in the middle of collapse, not because they're naive, but because they've stopped waiting for someone else to come and save them. They started growing their own food. They built mutual aid networks. And the funny thing is that they find each other in this wreckage, and yet they decide to make something beautiful anyway. And that's something I'm trying to do. I certainly don't have all the answers. Gosh, some days I'm just trying to keep the vegetables in my garden growing, or to show up for people around me in small ways. But I do believe this. We don't have to wait for permission to begin again. So there's one thing you could try this week that I've been thinking about. In fact, we can all try it. To pick that one thing we've been outsourcing to the system. I mean, things such as food, care, even storytelling, and see if we can take that one step closer to doing it within our communities. Maybe it's growing a communal garden, or even just herbs in our window box. Maybe it's cooking for a neighbor, or maybe it's sharing a story that's been sitting close to our chest. Because collapse can also be a call not to panic, but to participate. And maybe that's the question I want to leave us here with today. What's the one thing you could stop outsourcing and start doing together? Because honestly, that gives me hope. That kind born from truth, from looking collapse in the face and choosing still to care. Because if we can do that, if we can face the unraveling and still imagine, still create, and still love even, then maybe collapse isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's where we start again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Rewrite Reality. If this resonated, I would love to hear from you. So please do leave a comment wherever you're listening. What are you feeling? What came up for you? What's your take on today's topic? And consider sharing it with someone who might also be thinking deeply about the world around them. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes as we keep peeling back the layers and reimagining what's possible. And if you haven't already, check out Gregg the Artivist app. It's your hub for everything from listen podcast episodes like this one to watch featured videos to upcoming online and offline events. And it's also the easiest way to stay connected with our growing community. You can download it now from the App Store for iPhone users or Google Play for Android. If you prefer, there's always gregtheartivist.com for supportive information and more to this and all other episodes. Until next time, it's bye from me for now.